Welcome, Jaan Tallinn.
Good morning. So as you heard, I have many affiliations, but I think in today's context, the most important one is my affiliation to Singularity Institute. And Singularity Institute people have known to be advocating to look before you jump when it comes to AGI, and so hence it's actually appropriate that I start with a quote from the president of Singularity Institute, Michael Wasser, because it actually nicely bridges the topic of AGI safety with the theme of our conference here, which is Living Forever. So you see why we are all getting excited about the very real possibility of finally conquering natural causes of death. We should not forget about the equally real possibility of dying in a man-made disaster. So in particular, my presentation talks about the disastrous nature of the accidental emergence of AGI, that is, as Ben pointed out yesterday, artificial general intelligence, and what we can do together in order to either avoid it or survive it. First, let's talk about predictable processes. Like this video of a chain of dominoes. Before I play it, look at the first frame and consider what will happen after the first domino falls. Ready? Let's watch the video. Nice, wasn't it? Now, assuming you were paying attention 30 seconds ago when I showed you the first frame of the video, this is what happened inside your brain. It immediately started modeling the process in order to predict how the dominoes would fall. Interestingly, in your head there were literally tiny falling dominoes, composed of neurons firing in domino-like patterns. Correspondingly, this is my brain 3 weeks ago when I was preparing for this presentation. It was modeling how your brains would react if I showed the domino video. My neurons performed a dance of depicting brains with tiny dominoes inside. As you can imagine, I could keep going on with this, because now your brains are thinking about my brain that was thinking about your brains. What this example illustrates is how powerful our brains are. They seem to be able to model any process, including the process of thinking, the process of thinking about thinking, and so on. Which reminds me that my wife, who's sitting there, has this unidirectional telepathy thing. Every now and then she asks me what I'm thinking, and I'm supposed to report. However, when I ask her, so what are you thinking? I get back, well, I was just thinking about what you're thinking. Apparently, when a system has such universal modeling ability, mathematicians have a name for it. They call it Turing complete, after the famous English computer scientist Alan Turing. It seems possible that humans are the only animals on this planet who are Turing complete. In principle, we can model any abstract process in our head and form predictions about what will happen as a result. And one such process we can rerun in our head is evolution. If you think about it, it's really amazing. Evolution was chugging along on this planet for 4 billion years, and suddenly it produced a system called the brain of Charles Darwin. That system in turn managed to rerun a mini version of evolution, like a long chain of dominoes, and thereby understand the very process that produced itself. I consider that moment about 150 years ago the proof that creating human brains was a big mistake from evolution's perspective. Something no evolution in the right mind should do. I will come back to this point later in the talk. After Charles Darwin described evolution, anyone could model the process and see how it produced us. However, we can also one-up Darwin, take a step back and look at the bigger process in which evolution and humans are just two adjacent domino pieces. If we do that, we see that evolution was the result of self-replicators appearing on this planet, and humans in turn kicked off the process of technological progress. So we have 4 pieces so far in our model. Self-replicators, evolution, humans, and technological progress. But what is the next piece in the chain? To see this, let's look at where the technological progress is heading. Not long ago, humans used to be much better at chess than computers. That changed though on the 11th of May 1997 when IBM Deep Blue beat chess champion Garry Kasparov. Although computer chess has never made big headlines since, it continues to advance. Basically, if you are a human being today, 14 years later, even a mobile phone can beat you in chess. The next milestone. On October 8, 2005, 5 robot cars successfully completed the 200-kilometer race in Mojave Desert. So now computers can drive cars. 2008, a company called Boston Dynamics releases video footage of the 4-legged animal-like robot capable of traversing difficult terrain. 2009, the US Air Force commits to a strategic plan to replace human pilots with robots in 30 years. 2010, the so-called flash crash on the 6th of May, where the Dow Jones Index drops by an all-time record, only to recover within the next few minutes. The crash was caused by unintended consequences in the activity of stock trading robots. These robots now account for the majority of trading volume on the US stock market. The stock data company Nanax has published interesting pictures of this robot activity, like this picture here. MIT researcher Alex Wisner-Gross described the current situation on financial markets very saliently. He said that human traders are like plants that just stand still while carnivorous robots run circles around them. 2011. In February, IBM's Watson beats the best human Jeopardy players, Ken Jennings and Brett Rucker. And in October, Apple releases the first reliable voice recognition system in the mass market product. So now we live with computers that can understand what we say. Based on projections, before this decade is over, computers will be beating humans on the last traditional game that is so far resisted computer dominance, the ancient game of Go. So step by step, computers catch up to human competence and then proceed to utterly crush us in these domains. Which raises the question, what happens if computers outstrip us in all domains, including things like science, politics, programming? Are the domains that are so important that we must defend them as the last human bastions? The answer is yes. British statistician I.J. Good observed in 1965, and allow me to repeat his famous quote: "Let an ultra-intelligent machine be defined as a machine that can far surpass all the intellectual activities of any man, however clever. Since the design of machines is one of those intellectual activities, an ultra-intelligent machine could design even better machines. There would then unquestionably be an intelligence explosion, and the intelligence of man would be left far behind. Thus, the first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that a man need ever make." As a side note, I.J. Good's ultra-intelligent machine of course means the same thing as AGI. The term AGI just did not exist back in 1965. What this means in our model is that once computers reach our ability to design technology, the human-driven technological progress will be replaced by computer-driven intelligence explosion. Since computers would recursively benefit from such an explosion, they would rapidly become more and more powerful, possibly only stopped by the limits set by the laws of physics. The name of the American mathematician and sci-fi author Warren Vinci gave the product of such an explosion was powers. They are agents, or more likely just one agent, that vastly surpass the combined intelligence of all humankind. So these last two steps complete our model here. The model that I call intelligence stairway. It is a sequence of processes, technically known as optimization processes, where each one gives birth to the next, just like every falling domino causes the next one to fall. To recap, the processes were self-replicator starting evolution, evolution producing humans, humans starting technological progress resulting in AGIs, AGI sparking an intelligence explosion, and finally, we end up with powers controlling our planet. Now, if we assume that this model is correct, we can immediately draw several insights from it. First, evolution is not the glorious overarching process some people like to think it is. It's just the second step on the stairway, and not a very powerful one in the first place. The moment that humans crafted their first tools marked the start of the irreversible trend of replacing evolution with technological progress. You see, evolution is helpless against technology such as genetic engineering, synthetic life, and of course radical life extension. That is, inventions that disrupt the process of generations interlaced with natural selection. That is, That is what I meant when I said earlier that producing humans, and especially Charles Darwin, was evolution's biggest mistake. Second, the technological progress does not go on forever either. As the AGI will be our last invention, it is naive and careless to keep working on it with a typical technology development mindset, where first create a crude version of the product and then refine it. We will not get the chance to refine AGI, since those refinements are no longer part of technological progress. Third, the overall trend is towards greater intelligence over time. Again, mathematicians would say towards greater optimization power, which is less ambiguous than intelligence, but means the same kind of thing. Moreover, while every step on the ladder can be positive or neutral from the perspective of previous steps, more often than not they are completely disruptive. So we should not forget that the reason behind technological progress being nice is that it is driven by the market, which is in turn driven by human needs and values. Other processes here, such as evolution or the intelligence explosion, have entirely different drivers, so we should not expect them to be nice towards us by default. For example, Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom has written a paper called The Future of Human Evolution, where he argues that natural evolutionary pressures of an exploding human population would likely lead to dystopian scenarios, turning our descendants into life forms that you would find repulsive. Finally, let's note the time axis here. Subsequent processes tend to run quicker, so more events fit into similar chunks of time. For example, on an evolutionary timescale, technological progress has happened in a blink of an eye. So the popular transhuman meme of humans merging with the machines suddenly starts to look rather naive, because it assumes that the intelligence explosion process is slow enough for humans to adjust and tag along. But this might not be the case at all. If the intelligence explosion runs quickly and produces computers that are billions of times more powerful than us, from their perspective, humans are no longer the agents to interact with. On these timescales, we are just collections of water molecules and carbon atoms. We are statues. So if we really are on the brink of the biggest change on this planet since the invention of brains, what will the future be like? Is the intelligence explosion something we can survive? For clues, let's compare two steps on our stairway, evolution and technological progress. What are the aspects that make them different? First such aspect is design power. Technological progress is more powerful in the sense that it can reach out and grab designs from a much larger design space. On the contrast, evolution cannot plan ahead, so it has to stick to random incremental improvements. That's why we don't see evolution producing radios, nuclear weapons, or space rockets. Second, control. Keeping legacy products from previous steps around suddenly becomes a choice. For example, consider gorillas. They are on the verge of extinction, and their only hope as species is that we humans will decide to keep them around, a decision we have yet to make. So it really sucks to be a gorilla today. Or take another example. I think it was mentioned yesterday. One well-known race between evolution and technology is bacteria adapting to antibiotics. Although the race is interesting, in the long run, the bacteria stand no chance. Humans simply do not play by the same rules as evolution. Third, the evolution of eyes took tens of millions of years, yet the design of digital cameras took mere decades. So we have an example of the technological progress being able to produce systems of similar complexity about 1 million times faster than evolution. Fourth, technological progress has brought about drastic changes in the environment. Our planet has gone from producing forests to producing cities, especially if you look around in Hong Kong. And moreover, if you look around here, in the city, in Hong Kong, in any city, almost everything you see, with a notable exception of people, of course, was produced by technological progress and not evolution. So if the changes between evolution and technological progress can be extrapolated to the intelligence explosion, then these are the things we should expect. First, the production of magical-looking artifacts, just like nuclear bombs or radios are magical from the perspective of evolution. Second, losing control over future, just like evolution has lost control. And finally, and most importantly, massive environmental changes that will take place a million times faster than we expect. that is over the course of a few days or perhaps even hours. Since any rapid massive change is bound to be harmful to bystanders, the answer to our question about us is that uncontrolled intelligence explosion would be the biggest ecological catastrophe this planet has seen, and by default, humans are unlikely to survive. Therefore, even if we manage to conquer biological death, it seems that we might not get much time to enjoy our immortality. In other words, just like Michael Vassar said, we are either going to live forever or be killed by robots. In the remainder of my talk, I want to describe what we humans are doing to avoid the catastrophe and what we should be doing. However, before I continue, allow me to make a crucial point that we must keep in mind whenever we talk about AGI. The point is about human nature. Although, like I said, we are capable of modeling any process, thereby driving technological progress and controlling the future, that's all a mere side effect. You see, evolution never optimized us for that purpose. Instead, evolution gave us a big brain so we could better compete with other animals, most notably with other humans. Therefore, our primary domain of expertise is other people. That's why almost everything looks like people to us. We are hardwired to see faces everywhere we look. And that's why we treat our problems as if they were people. For example, we seek to punish uncooperative systems in order to instill fear in them. We know that it's extremely stupid, but in the heat of the moment, we just can't help it. But it is crucial to realize that AGI is not a psychology problem. It is an engineering problem. Thinking of AGI as if it were a human is like trying to design a bridge by imagining what you would do if you were a bridge. I believe that anthropomorphizing AGI is also the reason why people sometimes say that it's wonderful to be superseded by AGI. Some people in this room, I might say. I take the view that there really is no difference whether life on this planet is ended by intelligence explosion, bioengineering accident, or asteroid impact. We would end up just as dead. So if we want to make any progress towards a future that we can survive, we must get out of psychology mode and think like engineers instead. We must figure out how to fix the car, not how to punish it or say that the car wants to be broken. Cars are not people, and neither are AGIs. Coming back to the AGI progress slide there, according to our model, we should start thinking about AGI space as a target with a disaster in the middle. So who are the people in the shooting range trying to hit the bullseye, and what are they thinking? Well, I have spent the last year traveling the world and talking to different AGI developers. I can report that they are all very nice and very smart people. However, there seems to be a fair amount of work left to do before we can feel safe. AI researcher Wei Dai once made the observation that if you plot the AI developers on a chart of their intelligence versus how dangerous they are, you get this inverted U-shape. On the left, we have AI developers who are not dangerous because they are not capable of hitting the center of the target. On the right, we have AI developers who are capable of doing it, but have realized that the biggest AGI problem is not how to make one, but how to avoid the resulting ecological catastrophe. Moreover, they know that extremely careful engineering is needed for this. You can't just apply some psychological hand-waving as humans typically do. In the middle, however, we have people who are smart enough to potentially create an AGI, but lack in either intelligence or motivation to consider the consequences. In my view, they are the ultimate Darwin Award nominees. That is, people who are engaged in an activity without realizing that this activity will kill them. But at this point, I must confess that I used to be such a potential Darwin Award nominee myself. I have been programming computers for 25 years, half of that developing games where AI has always been an important component. And it never occurred to me that there can be something inherently dangerous in making computers as smart as humans. Only after I started talking to AI researchers and philosophers 2 years ago, I realized where this process is heading. Therefore, I know firsthand that becoming enlightened on AI matters is not easy, because you have to suppress many of their inborn intuitions. So the practical conclusion here is that we need to work with AI developers in the Darwin Award zone and try to help them over to the enlightened zone, where they become safety conscious. Although I feel that I'm in a good position to do that, having seen both sides of the fence. Interestingly, this is actually something that everyone can help with. In October at the Singularity Summit in New York, I gave a talk explaining that people's motivations are usually a combination of three elements. A, personal interest, such as doing interesting work. B, social feedback, and C, the impact they will have on the future. In the context of AGI, we really want to increase the proportion of the third motivation. And one way of doing that would be to tap into the second motivation and apply social pressure to AI developers. Ask them if they are aware that they are working towards an ecological catastrophe, and point out that it's stupid to do so. In other words, it is embarrassing to be a Darwin Award nominee. Such social pressure would be particularly effective if it came from people close to them. For example, I was glad when an AI developer once confessed to me that his wife was very concerned about his work. Moreover, when discussing safety strategies with a group of researchers, we observed that people with children care more about the future. So we jokingly proposed that one practical step towards making a world a safer place would be to identify the wives and girlfriends of AI developers and make sure they all get pregnant. One additional problem, though, is that over time, many formerly harmless developers find themselves in the Darwin Award zone. As computers become more powerful, we are effectively stepping closer to the bullseye, so it becomes easier to hit. Like this. For example, since the Dartmouth conference in 1956, which is considered the birth of the AI development, computers have become 100 million times faster. If you translated that to distance, it would be like covering the distance from the Earth to the Moon, and now standing right in front of the target so you can reach out with our hand and touch it. Which is why we urgently need to come up with a good safety strategy. As should be visible from the target structure, there are two approaches to AI safety. Either make sure that we are not going to accidentally hit the bullseye, or aim for the tiny speck in the center that corresponds to so-called friendly AI, which is to say an AGI that, in addition to being more powerful than us, probably has humanity's interest in mind as it goes through the intelligence explosion. More precisely, the idea with friendly AI is to engineer the trajectory of the intelligence explosion, so it is basically a smooth extension of the technological progress, and not something radically different and disruptive. This way we could hopefully avoid becoming obsolete as a result of similar mistakes that evolution made when it produced us. Of course, engineering friendly AI is insanely hard. One reason why it's hard is captured in this wonderful picture here by National Geographic. It shows a chimpanzee community in mourning over one of their elders who has passed away. Look at it and bear in mind that they're witnessing animal behavior. Turns out that we value things like life, family, the environment, health, food, love, games, not because we are but because we are animals. AGI, on the other hand, is not an animal. It's just a program. So you have to painstakingly code in everything we value, and we are nowhere close to having an idea how to do that yet. The second reason why friendly AI is still out of our reach is that creating AGI is like firing a cannon. Once the intelligence explosion starts, we won't be able to intervene and make course corrections. Therefore, we need to develop mathematical proofs that the given program will remain committed to its original goals, even after billions of iterations of self-improvement. Not to mention that working on friendly AI is inherently dangerous, since every step towards friendly AI is also a step towards AGI. Hence, the first option of avoiding creating AGI in the first place seems much more practical at this point. But what does avoid creating AGI mean? That is, what makes a so-called narrow AI become general so it can add the G to its business card? To answer that, let's go back to our chess computer example again. This is the domain of the chess program. Its entire world consists of the chessboard. The only processes we can think about are those that involve chess pieces moving on the board. However, it is obviously very useful for a chess player to consider the outside world. In particular, if you could model your opponent, read his emotions, and predict his moves, meaning the game would become much easier. And as you can imagine, the game of poker would be an even better example here. Such a step from narrow and abstract domain of game rules to the domain of the real world is exactly what I mean by making a narrow AI more general. Therefore, if we want to avoid creating a full-blown AGI, we must make sure that critical domains remain that the AI is simply unaware of. For example, by ensuring that it will never have a concept of humans or agents in general. Interestingly, the most promising place I have come across to look for inspiration about how to isolate AIs in their narrow domain is Conway's Game of Life. This is basically a toy universe with 3 simple rules that specify the dynamics, its laws of physics, so to speak. At each turn, every cell on the grid here is turned on or off depending on the status of its immediate neighbors. And all the interesting moving figures you see are just emergent phenomena. Interestingly, Game of Life has been proven to be Turing complete, so any process can be simulated in it, given a sufficiently large board. So the idea with domain isolation is that we embed the AI in its own toy universe that evolves according to simple rules, and very importantly, we make the AI value those rules. What this means is that whenever the AI finds a glitch in the matrix, so to speak, that is a development that's not compatible with those rules, its imperative must be to shut down immediately. Using such toy world may sound computationally expensive, but it's actually not too bad if you consider that an offline computer is an instance of such a toy universe anyway, with a CPU instruction set functioning as its laws of physics. Of course, a natural question to ask at this point is that as we are talking about embedding toy universes in our own, what about our universe? What are the chances that we live in a toy universe that's embedded in a bigger one? I find this question highly fascinating and worthy of its own presentation. Given my time limits though, I'm just leaving this note as a food for thought. Of course, domain isolation is not the only idea that will make AI safer. It is just one example of a practical measure that has non-trivial chance of working. More generally, it's incredibly important to start a global effort involving philosophers and theoretical researchers on one hand, and down in the trenches AI developers on the other, and together design a safety protocol for practical AI development. I'm happy to report that just such an initiative is being contemplated at the Future of Humanity Institute at Oxford, so I'm hoping it will prove to be a right seed for the eventual protocol. I believe it would be a big step towards making the world a safer place, because assuming AI developers are not malicious, it is in their own interests to avoid accidents, especially if their girlfriends are doing. So to sum it up, if we view AGI as something that will replace human-driven technological progress with a computer-driven intelligence explosion, we can't escape the conclusion that it will be an ecological catastrophe by default. Second, we need to enlighten AI developers to help them out of the Darwin award-nominee zone. And finally, we need to involve those enlightened AI developers in the upcoming global effort to prepare the practical safety protocol, while researchers work on a much harder problem of friendly AI. So if I could use the domino metaphor once again, I would say that shaping a positive future with AGI is like setting up a long chain of dominoes. We must refrain from triggering interaction before all of the pieces have been lined up and we are certain of the result. Thank you.